D&D number 6, The Worth of Souls in Jesus' Name. Chapter 8. Hey, Marissa whispered her cell phone. What are you doing? We're lying here in the bed talking about you, Cameron said. What about me? Well, remember how you said you hate breakfast because your father makes such a big deal out of it and likes like this boring hour-long ordeal? Yeah, so? Well, Jeffy here has this idea that she can scout your dad's office while you guys are at breakfast. Oh my gosh. You've got to be kidding me. I'm not kidding, Jeffy said. Am I on speaker? Yes, you're on speaker, Cameron mocked in a little girl voice. Marissa giggled. How would you get in, Jeffy? Just leave a window or door unlocked for me somewhere. I mean, everyone, even Miss Dora, is going to be in either the kitchen or the dining room, right? Well, yes. And my flight doesn't leave until 11. What time do you eat breakfast? On Saturday, it's 9 o'clock on the dot, and we must stay to have family time until 10 on the dot. Sometimes we just sit there and stare at each other. Well, except Dad, he gets to read the paper. He's a sick man, Marissa. I don't even know him, and I hate him. I'm sorry. I know he's your dad and all, but geez, OCD aside, what a pervert. I think I used to love him, Marissa admitted. He'd always been so good to me, but now that I know what he did to Mick, I realize what a monster he is. Now I can barely stand to be in the same room with him. I'm sorry, Marissa. I know this has to be hard on you. I'm okay, especially now that I know that Mick's okay too. I just can't wait for everything to be over. Well, that's why I want to do this. If I can find something incriminating, it would actually be over as early as tomorrow. Well, that would be so awesome. So, are you going to do it? Yes. I'll leave the library door open. There's a veranda off the left side of the house, just outside the library. Come in there. When you come out of the library, turn left. His office is 2 doors down. Okay, it's a date. Don't let me down. I won't. I hope you find something big. Me too. Well, I better hang up. You two don't do anything I wouldn't do. I don't know, Marissa. Jeffy here is definitely a hot babe. Marissa laughed. You two behave. Cameron closed the phone. She practically forces me to spend the night in a motel with a looker like you, and I'm supposed to behave. Jeffy grinned. A looker, huh? Yes. Don't you know that? Most people just like me for my brains or for my brother and sister. Cameron laughed. Your brain is nice and all that, and it's cool that you have a famous family, but Jeffy, I swear you could drive a guy crazy. Jeffy smiled. Really? I think I like that. He moved closer to her. Do you now? What else do you like? She looked up at his face and was just inches from hers, but looked down again and shrugged. Hey, I was just like flirting, you know. No big deal. Jeffy smiled at him. Yeah, I know. That's no problem. It was your question. What else do I like? Well, the problem is, I don't know what I like. Can I ask you a personal question? Cameron scooted back to lean against the wooden headboard attached to the wall. Okay, shoot. Jeffy moved up to sit beside him, mostly so she wouldn't have to look right into his eyes. Are you, uh, a virgin? His mouth opened. Wow. You get right to it, don't you? Look, I didn't mean anything by what I said a second ago. Like I said, I was just flirting a little. She looked over at him, gave a comforting smile. Oh, sure, I get that. Still, I want to know, are you a virgin? When he didn't answer right away, she felt bad for asking, and she looked down. Sorry, you don't have to answer if you don't want to. No. She blinked. No? You've had sex? Yes. His eyes met hers, and she couldn't look away. He was looking at her in a way that made her feel funny inside. Not a bad funny like Blake a few weeks ago, but funny in a pleasant way. How old are you? Jeffy asked. 16. Almost 17, actually. When did you turn 15? Just a few months ago, in March. Man, I'm almost 2 years older than you. Marissa will be 16 in August. That makes you the baby of the three of us. Oh. She looked down. Cameron took her hand. I didn't mean to call you a baby. Not in a bad way. I sure don't see you as a baby. I think I see you as the coolest chick I've ever met. Jeffy beamed. Thanks. You're welcome. So tell me, do you have a boyfriend? No, I sort of keep to myself at school. Do you have a girlfriend? Nah, we broke up. What about Marissa? The two of you seem pretty close. Well, we're just friends. We've known each other since first grade. We're like there for each other whenever one of us is going through a hard time. Well, that's awesome to have such a good friend. Yeah, it is. So, can I ask you another personal question? Sure. The first time you had sex, what was it like? Cameron swallowed hard. It was really like great. Was she a virgin? No. When you say great, what do you mean? Darn, Jeffy, I don't know. Please, Cameron, I want to know. I need to know. She leaned against him. Please, just tell me a little more than it was great. He sighed. Hmm. It was kind of like that first kiss, you know? That warm feeling in your stomach when you kiss for the first time and you feel like you don't ever want to stop. It was kind of like that, only 100 times stronger. Jeffy's big brown eyes blinked up at him as she considered his description. Cameron's brow furrowed. You don't know. You've never been kissed, have you? She shook her head. Well, not really. There was this one guy, but he was so rough and it didn't feel good. It was just cold and wet and slimy. I hope it's not supposed to be like that. Cameron laughed. I don't think it is. Jeffy's eyes opened wide with excitement. Cameron, will you show me? I mean, will you show me what a kiss is supposed to be? Jeffy, you hardly know me. I'm not sure if it would be right for me to kiss you yet. Well, logically speaking, we don't have a lot of time. I'm leaving tomorrow morning. This is one of those now or never kind of deals. Don't you want to show me? He drew a breath. I'd be crazy to not want to kiss you, and I do want to, Jeffy, but... Well, then don't overanalyze it. Just do it. He smiled. You're doing that weird kind of talking again. Oh, sorry. Habit. She smiled at him while she went over in her mind the words she'd spoken and how she should have changed them so she wouldn't sound so weird. And when she couldn't figure it out, her mind moved on to the problem at hand. Well, are you going to kiss me or not? Yes. Okay. Don't rush me. She smiled. Okay. I'll just sit here and you let me know when you're ready. Fine. He sat silently for a few moments and then turned slightly toward her. He used his left hand to position her head. He watched her eyes as he moved his mouth close to her. His heart pounded a mile a minute. Her eyes were wide, and it made him chuckle a little, but when she frowned, he corrected himself. Slowly, he touched his lips to hers, moved them gently over hers, until finally her eyes drifted shut. He opened his mouth a tiny bit, and she responded with the same motion. When he pulled away, Jeffy stayed there, her eyes closed, her mouth slightly open. So, what do you think? He asked. She opened her eyes. Well, it was nice, but, I mean, not earth-shattering like everyone says. He smiled. Well, I didn't want to freak you out. She nodded. Okay, I appreciate the sentiment. Still, I mean, can you try again? I mean, like, it certainly wasn't like the way my father kisses my mother. You've seen your parents kiss? They do it quite often. Ricky's always telling me to. Ricky's always telling them to get a room. Cameron laughed. Jeffy put her hand on his face. So, kiss me, like my father kisses my mother. Show me what it's really like. Cameron's stomach tightened, and he was all too willing to continue the lesson this time. Okay, but you have to follow my lead. Whatever I do, you do it too. Jeffy nodded. I understand that. It's an intimacy that shows you trust each other and want to be close to each other. Cameron shook his head. Whatever. Doing it again? Yes. Sorry. It's okay. He tilted her face up and lowered his mouth to hers. He kissed her as passionately as he knew how, and he knew she understood when she gave a soft moan in the back of her throat. Though he was sure she was beginning to understand, he wasn't willing to end it just yet. He angled his head differently and deepened the kiss, thinking he was the luckiest guy in Seattle tonight. He kissed her so hard she began to slide down, and suddenly she was on her back, and he was halfway on top of her. Not wanting to frighten her, he broke the kiss, but she grabbed him by the shoulders and pulled him back down. And this time he really kissed her, deeply and thoroughly. Her arms moved up to circle his neck, and one of his hands moved down her arm, accidentally touching the side of her breast, and she gasped and sat up. I'm sorry, he said immediately. I didn't mean to do that. Really, you're safe. I won't go any farther. No, it's okay. I know I'm safe. I just wasn't ready for the feelings. I seem to be ultra sensitive to touch right now. Wow. Wow. I've never felt that way before. Like, I don't know. Like I wanted you to be closer to me. Like I never wanted you to stop kissing me. Wow. Well, it was pretty good for me, too, he said. She smiled at him. Did you want to keep going? Only if you want to. I do, she said, closing her eyes and lifting her face for more kisses. He went to town. Making out with a gorgeous, willing girl had been far from what he thought he'd be doing tonight, yet who was he to argue with fate? She slid down again, just like before, and he moved halfway on top of her, just like before, and she locked her hands around his neck, just like before. They only broke the kiss for short intervals to catch their breath. Jeffy decided kissing was awesome. She began to understand the intimacy of it. She paid attention to her body, to the way it responded to what Cameron was doing. When he moved, when he made a sound, each thing he did, her body responded. How very intriguing, she thought. She thought about how he'd accidentally touched the side of her breast a little while ago and found herself wishing he'd do it again. As a matter of fact, she wondered why he didn't, and then she realized he was being honorable. She hadn't given him permission to do anything but kiss her. He was honorable. Her father would like that. She better put her dad out of her mind for now. Anyway, so she wanted to know what it would feel like for Cameron to touch her. She just remedied the situation real fast. She broke the kiss. Cam, she whispered. Hmm? You can touch my breast again. If you'd like to. It's okay. He merely stared at her. Cam? Yeah. I don't think that's a good idea. Sighing, she accepted that. She just concentrated on kissing him back. And they kissed for a long time. And finally Cam raised his head. Do you like that? Oh, yes, she purred at him. Don't stop. Okay. She didn't know how long they'd been at it. He kissed her and she was in heaven and couldn't stop moaning over the feelings. She thought maybe making the moaning sounds was encouraging him to keep at it, and so she let the sounds come. Taking time to read her body, though, she realized something was happening. She felt hot and had a funny feeling in the pit of her stomach, and she knew she was having the symptoms of a body's natural response to foreplay. Her body was readying for the act of sex. Just the thought of the act. Wow, she found herself imagining it. She was starting to understand. Suddenly, having sex was all she could think of. She wanted it, craved it, had to have it. She broke the kiss and rose up. Cameron, do you want to have sex with me? Geez, Jeffy, I, yes. No, yes, of course I do. Why I wouldn't? But the way you put it makes it sound so, I don't know, so cold, I guess. Let's just say I want to make love to you. Oh, wow. I want to make love to you. Oh, wow. That was the perfect thing to say. So then, will you make love to me? He swallowed hard and didn't respond. Cam? He shrugged. I'm older than you, and I'm supposed to say you're just a kid. You're only 15, and you're a virgin. You don't know what you want. And you know that wouldn't be true because I'm very mature for my age, and I'm telling you, I very much want to be relieved of my virginity. So what do you have to say now? Uh, he said, trying to wrap his brain around what was taking place. He stopped, trying to understand, and went with it. I guess I say I'll go get some condoms. Jeffy giggled. I'll take that as a yes. She jumped up, clapping her hands. Oh, this is going to be so wonderful. You go get condoms and I'll order pizza 'cause I'm starved. Deal? He thought briefly. Here was a girl offering to buy pizza and have sex with him. He just wasn't man enough to turn that down. Deal. He sprang for the door, stopped, came back, and grabbed his keys. Be right back. Cameron beat the pizza guy back by 20 minutes. He'd half expected to get back and find Jeffy dressed in some sexy nightgown or something, but she was still dressed in her blue jean skirt and short sleeved shirt. She had, however, removed her shoes and taken her hair down. She sat on the bed against the headboard again. He tossed his keys and wallet on the dresser and his package on the bedside table and sat down on the side of the bed. Can I see them? She asked. He took the box out of the bag and handed it to her. You're curious about everything, aren't you? Oh, I have a very inquisitive mind. He looked her over. She had amazing thighs, taut and muscular, small breasts, the cutest mouth, big eyes, and the way she was sitting on the bed, he could see up her skirt, which made his throat dry and his eyes water. Are you, uh, are you sure you still want to do this? I think so. Do you? If you want to. I think I do. They chatted a little awkwardly until the pizza arrived. Cameron left to buy some soft drinks out of the vending machine, and when he got back, they turned on the TV and camped out on the bed, gobbling up greasy, cheesy pizza and guzzling sodas. And when they finished eating, Jeffy rose and cleaned up the mess and washed her hands and face and stood in front of the mirror, brushing her long hair. Your hair is really pretty, Cameron said. Thanks. I get the color from my dad and the curls from my mom. Setting her brush on the counter, she came back to the bed and sat next to him, cross-legged, her back against the headboard. Cameron's eyes were on the TV, watching some movie with a couple kissing. He looked over at her. You know, it will hurt the first time, right? She nodded. I've heard that. I'm not afraid. So, are you ready? I guess. It seems weird now, though, not like before when you kissed me. Well, probably when I kiss you again, it won't seem weird anymore. Okay. He stood and took off his shirt and sat down next to her. She started to pull her own shirt over her head, but stopped. He'd been watching her, waiting for the exquisite moment, and suddenly realized that she'd stopped, and he noticed that she was trembling. He sighed. She was having second thoughts. I can tell you're not feeling it anymore, Jeffy. She swallowed hard. I'm sorry, Cameron. Are you mad? I don't think mad is the right word. I guess disappointed is more like it. I guess I'm just a stupid little girl after all. Nah, I still think you're the coolest chick I know. I'll tell you what, we'll just lie here together for a while. Maybe I'll kiss you again, and then if you still want to go further, we can, and if you don't, we won't. How's that? Jeffy nodded and smiled weakly. Thanks, Cameron. That makes you pretty cool, too. I see why Marissa likes you so much. Well, considering the alternative, it just makes me smart. What do you mean? What's the alternative? Well, I mean, the alternative is I could force you, but since I know who your family is, that would be a death sentence for me, so I'm just being smart. Jeffy laughed. Aw, that's sweet. What's sweet? That you think you could force me. He frowned for a moment and then accepted her declaration of superiority. He turned off the light, left the TV on, and then they got under the covers. Jeffy lay on her back and Cameron on his side, facing her. They talked for a while about the next day's plans, and then he bent his head and kissed her, and she moaned again, just like before, and kissed him back, just like before. But he remained smart enough to take it no further. Next scene. Jeff softly knocked on Mickey's door in the very early dawn. He didn't wait for her to answer, but just slipped inside. It's just me, he whispered, hoping not to startle her. She rose up. I was hoping you'd come to me last night. He sat down on the side of the bed. I thought about it, but decided to let you get some alone time to try to sort out some of your feelings. She didn't say anything, only lifted the cover, inviting him in. He scooted in next to her. Mickey curled up against his chest as usual, sighing at the feel of his rough palm caressing her back. He drew a deep breath and sighed. I just want to let you know that so far, I'm still in love with you. Mickey giggled. Good. Just to let you know. Me too. Good. If it changes, would you tell me? Mickey asked. I hope I would. I mean, I believe in honesty in a relationship. Would you tell me? I'm not sure. I think it would take me a while to realize it wasn't working anymore, and then I'd probably try to do something to bring back the old feelings, and then eventually I'd figure it out and let go. His finger ran gently over her shoulder and down her arm. Well, maybe we should try to get to know each other better. I mean, other than carnal knowledge. Okay, so ask me a question. When's your birthday? He said. February 3rd. When's yours? November 8th. What's your favorite color? Purple. What's yours? Blue. Mickey snuggled closer. Who's your favorite writer? Mackenzie Daly. She laughed. Good answer. Do you want to have children? Jeff asked. Sure. Maybe 2 or 3. What about you? Ditto. Jeff, I know I've been pretty weepy since I've known you. Do you think that's why you like me? I mean, maybe my wimpiness is bringing out your protective side. He looked down at her. Well, I guess giving you a night to be alone actually did give you time to think about things. She sighed. Then you think I have a point? Nope. What I saw when I first met you was a woman with amazing strength. Remember the woman I found in the woods had just... He stopped himself. The woman I found had just escaped from an impossible situation. She knew what he'd been about to say, but she let it go. Well, maybe I am strong, even though it didn't feel like strength when everything was happening. All my life, it's only been me. I had to be strong. I learned at an early age that no one was going to step in and make everything all better. I certainly didn't get any help from my mother, and my father left back when I was little. There's never been anyone until you. He squeezed her. I'm glad I was there, baby. I want you to know that you can depend on me to step in, as you put it. No one is ever going to hurt you again. She looked up into his face and kissed his mouth softly, then snuggled back down. Ask me another question. Okay. What music do you like? Jeff asked. Rock and roll, she said huskily. Oh, yeah, that's good. Okay, now we know all about each other. Let's get back to carnal knowledge. Giggling, she pressed her face against his neck and breathed. You do that all the time, like a kitten trying to get close. Does it bother you? She asked. No, I like it. I think it's cute. Well, I'm not sure what makes me do it. It really is as if I can't get close enough. And also because I like the way you smell. He sniffed his underarm. Well, you're weird. When she laughed, he grabbed her and held her still. I love hearing you giggle and laugh. It's like I want to be very funny so I can hear that sound all the time. Oh, Jeff, when you say things like that, it tells me all I know about you. I do love you. He kissed her. Me too, he said, when he pulled away. How would you like to go for a walk? It's still dark outside. I know, but the sun will be up soon, and I love walking on the beach when the sun comes up. Besides, after that, I have to join the Kinos for Tai Chi and training. When Grandmaster Kino extends a second invitation, it wouldn't be polite to turn him down. Can I watch? Sure. However, if you do, you'll probably be asked to participate. Okay, that's cool. Let's get going. New scene. Just follow along the best you can. When you get winded, slow down or stop for a few minutes and then join back in, Eric counseled. I jog almost every day, so I'm in pretty good shape, Mickey said. She peered around her when she heard several snickers, but whoever had laughed had already schooled their features back to innocence. She looked back at Master Kino. What? Oh, they were being smart Alex, and they will pay for that, he said with a smile. This time she heard a few soft groans. Let's begin. She followed them through the warm-up and stretching, keeping her eyes on Jeff, amazed at the extent of his knowledge and physical conditioning. And when things got tough, she pushed herself. And then things got tough, and she pushed herself, and yet 10 minutes into the drill, she thought she might pass out. At the 15-minute mark, she definitely felt like she might throw up. She stopped breathing hard, her hands on her knees. Don't stand in one place, Jeff whispered. Walk slowly in a small circle and breathe deeply. Nodding, she did as instructed, and so it went throughout the lesson. Near the end, she was grateful when she was instructed to sit and watch as they went through their choreographed forms. It was an eye-opener for sure. These people were amazing, true artists, perfect bodies, beautiful minds, angelic faces. It seemed they glowed with a golden aura. What an absolute treat to be able to share this experience with them. She was in heaven. New scene. Cameron watched her walk away. This morning she had on some tight jeans with a little tank top that showed her belly. She'd braided her hair back, and even though he preferred it down like she'd had it last night, it was still appealing. He realized as he watched her that he didn't want her to leave. The moment she turned her back to him, it was as if the sun had gone behind the clouds. He had to stop her, if only for a few seconds. "Hey," Cameron called. Jeffy turned with a smile on her face, and the sun reappeared. "What?" He crooked a finger at her. She came back to the car and leaned toward his window. "Be careful," he said softly. "I will," she laughed. "No, really. We haven't talked about it, but what you're getting ready to do, it could be dangerous." "About the only thing I'm in danger of is being on restriction for the rest of my life." Cameron frowned. "But what if... Cam, I'll be careful. I promise." She leaned in and kissed him. "Thanks, Cameron, for everything." He sighed. He didn't want to say goodbye. "Can I give you a ride to the airport?" She smiled. "I'd like that." "Well, then I'll wait here." "Well, it could be a while." "I'll wait." "Thanks." She took off at a jog. Cameron had dropped her off a block from the Daly's house, and once there she found the veranda on the side of the house easy enough. Her heart pounding like a bass drum, she eased up to the French doors and turned a knob. It gave a little click and opened. A rush of cool air-conditioned air blew wisps of hair back from her face. She moved through the room silently, thinking about her ninjutsu training and how it finally thinking about her ninjutsu training and how it finally was going to get some practical use. She opened the library door and moved into the hall. Voices traveled to her from the back of the house. She could hear Marissa asking her father questions about Mickey. Jeffy thought she was probably trying to keep his attention on her in case Jeffy made a mistake. Quickly, Jeffy moved 2 doors down and entered the office. It was the same room Mr. Daly had returned to after she'd met him yesterday. Moving fast, she went to the file drawers. They were locked. She opened the drawer to his desk and found some keys and tried them. They worked. How simple was that? Still, after thumbing through the files for 15 minutes, she could find nothing of interest. No funny names, no bills or receipts. She gave up on the files and began searching the desk itself. She went through every drawer, even looked for a secret compartment, but she could find nothing. Gazing at the desk, she noticed a PC and a laptop. The laptop was sitting front and center. Shrugging, she fired it up. It blinked on and she went to work. She was pretty good at computers, but she didn't have a lot of time. Her fingers flew over the keyboard, searching for some clue. New scene. "But what if she never comes back? What will we do then?" Marissa asked, acting as if her heart was broken. "Marissa," her father said sternly, "we've covered this subject enough for today. If Mackenzie doesn't come back, then life goes on. We will accept it and deal with it, because that is what we Dailies do. Now stop all this whimpering. Sit up straight and finish your breakfast." "Yes, sir," she mumbled, thinking of how much she hated him. His cell phone went off, and he looked down at it with disgust. It surprised Marissa when he actually answered it during their stupid, sacred breakfast. "Why are you calling me at this hour?" he said without saying hello. "Because we have some big problems." "Speak." "Martin and Yin were arrested yesterday at Ameritech." "Yes, well, I told you not to underestimate those people." "Well, I got wind this morning that they spilled their guts." "Impossible. I've taken precautions to make sure that they are loyal. If they want their wives or kids to..." He stopped, realizing he was still at the table, and Marissa was staring at him in horror. He stood. "Excuse me, ladies, a bit of business that can't wait." "No!" Marissa cried, jumping out of her chair and running after him. "Dad, oh, wait, where are you going?" He stopped in the hall. I'm going to my study to take care of this business. Now go back and finish breakfast. No, Dad, I need to talk to you. It will have to wait. It can't wait. Marissa, you're being ridiculous and melodramatic. Are you sure you're well? Run along now. He started toward the door. Marissa reached out and grabbed him by the arm. No! Wait, Dad. This can't wait. It's something really important, really bad. You have to listen to me. He smiled at her. I'll be off the phone in a few minutes, and whatever it is you have to tell me, we can talk then. Wrenching his arm from her grip, he turned the knob and strode into his office. Marissa held her breath. When her father didn't go berserk, she peeked into the room. A quick glance around told her Jeppy must have heard them coming and hidden or had already left. She let out a sigh of relief until she looked up at her father. He stood stock still, his eyes teeming with anger. He was either staring at the computer on his desk or the slightly open drawer, as if in slow motion his eyes shifted to her. What were you doing in my office? He said, between clenched teeth. Marissa's mouth fell open and her brain scrambled. I, I. Her father grabbed her by the shoulders. You what? What? The high pitch of his voice told her he was angrier than she'd ever seen him. Maybe she was getting a glimpse of what her sister had faced all those years. When she didn't answer him, he shook her hard. What did you do? He bellowed. She couldn't get the words out. She couldn't think of what to tell him. You're hurting me, she finally screamed at him. You little brat. You haven't seen anything yet. He hauled back his hand. Let her go, Jeffy ordered. Both Marissa and her father gasped loudly. Talman spun around. You. Yeah, me, Jeffy said. She looked past him to Marissa. Go, Marissa. Run. Marissa shook her head. No, I can't leave you, she cried. I don't know who you think you are, you little thief, but you have messed with the wrong person. He reached for her. Jeffy snap-kicked, knocking his arm away, then side-kicked right into his gut. The man doubled over, then looked up, astonishment on his face. Yeah, how does it feel to have someone fight back? Jeffy said. You're dead, little girl, he whispered fiercely, then louder, Marissa, get out of here. No, I won't. His face contorted with rage. Yes, you will, he yelled. He spun his backhand, knocking the young... he spun his backhand, knocking the young girl out into the hall. What's happening? Marion cried as she and Miss Dora came running. Breathing hard, Talman glared at her. You and Dora put your daughter in the car and go somewhere. Now. Go somewhere? Marion asked as she pulled Marissa to her feet. Where? Why? Don't you question me. Take her to the mall. Take her shopping. Just get her out of my house. I won't go, Marissa cried, wiping blood from her mouth. What are you going to do with Chris? Chris and I are going to have a little talk, and then I'm going to send her home. You can't do that, Marissa sobbed. Please, Daddy. Get her out of here, he ordered, glowering at his wife. Dora put her hand on Marion's shoulder. Come on, Marion. We'd better do as he says. Marissa screamed as Marion and Dora each took one of her arms and dragged her away. Talman turned back to Jeffy. Now then, suppose you tell me what you and my daughter were doing in my office, snooping around in my computer. Jeffy swallowed hard. I don't have to tell you anything. You're not going to get away with whatever you were doing. What are you going to do? Call the cops? I wish you would. I'm sure you wish that. I don't know what you think you know about me, and I don't have time to try to get the information out of you. I doubt that Chris is your real name, though it really doesn't matter. I have someone who has all the time necessary to find out what I want to know, and I don't know what you think you were doing, but it's over for you. Jeffy fought the fear that snaked up her spine. She knew he was capable of anything. He'd proven that. She also knew she needed to act quickly. So taking a stance, she raised her fists. He laughed and then lunged at her. She spun with blinding speed and kicked to his face, connecting with a pleasant-sounding thunk. Then she punched to his throat, landing only a glancing blow, then kicked to his groin, and he sank to his knees. It's now or never, she thought, and darted toward the door. She almost made it. but he reached out to grab her and caught her braid at the last second. Her head snapped back, and she landed hard on the shiny hardwood floor, moaning. Before she had a chance to recover, he'd pulled her up and had her in a headlock. He jerked her out of the room and down the hall to another room, slamming the door open. She grabbed the door jamb and held on. "Let go," he warned, tightening his arm and squeezing off her air supply. When she didn't comply, he began to squeeze, and slowly her arms went limp. He pulled her dazed body into the small area and tossed her literally across the room. She landed with a thud, and before she could get up and try to run out, he slammed the door shut and locked it from the outside, smiling when he heard her throw herself against the door, screaming at him to let her out. Straightening his shirt, smoothing back his hair, he drew a calming breath and went back to his study. When he found the phone he dropped in all the scuffle, he dialed Kurt. "What happened?" Kurt asked. "We have another problem I'm going to need you to take care of." New scene. "How could you, Mom?" Marissa cried in the back seat of the car. "What kind of a mother are you? How could you let him do this?" Marion sat next to her, hands squeezed into fists. "Do what, Marissa?" "Your friend broke into your father's office, and he's going to have a word with her. That's all. Then he's going to see her home." "Oh, Mom, you are so blind." "She didn't break into his office. I let her in." "Why on earth would you do that?" "To get information." "Information on what?" Marissa eyed her mother, realizing she really was in her own little world. She had no idea what kind of man she'd married, and Marissa just realized her mom would never believe all the things Marissa had discovered about her own father. "You know what, Mom? I don't care that he hurt me, and I don't care that you don't care that he hurt me. But how could you let him hurt Mickey? How could you?" Dora glanced at her passengers in the rearview mirror. Finally, the truth was going to come out. "What are you talking about?" "You know he hurt her, Mom. You have to know. Your own little girl. You were all she had, and you turned your back on her. I hate you. You're so weak. I hate you," she cried, turning away. Back at the house in the tiny room, Jeffy looked around her. It had no windows and no furniture. There were boxes and boxes of what appeared to be ceramic tiles. She could see no way out, and the fear factor kicked in completely. She needed her father, and she needed him now. And then she realized Mr. Daly hadn't bothered to take her phone. New scene. The Keno's breakfast table was a riot, Mickey thought. Lively, friendly, happy. It was a wonderful way to start each day. Remembering the breakfasts that she'd endured all those years growing up, she shuddered. Shelley was laughing with Mark and Joey over something that little Joey had said. Eric looked on quietly, love and kindness glowing on his face. He glanced at her, and Mickey smiled at him, and he smiled back, and she thought all was right with the world. Beside her, Jeff chowed down with one hand and squeezed her thigh with the other. Closing her eyes, she gave thanks for her life. Eric's cell went off. "Who would be calling this early?" Shelley asked casually. Eric pulled out the phone and glanced at the number. "It's Jeffy." "Well, tell her to get her butt home," Joey said. "She's been gone long enough." "Good morning, Jeffy," Eric said. "Daddy!" Jeffy cried. Eric's face changed. "Jeffy? What's wrong?" The entire table became silent. "Daddy, I'm in big trouble," she sobbed. Eric stood. "Where are you, baby?" "I'm sorry, Daddy. I'm so sorry." "Jeffy, tell me where you are. What's happened?" "I'm in Seattle." "Seattle?" There was a collective gasp. Mickey rose, as did Shelley, then Jeff, then Mark, and Joey. "Yes, Daddy. I thought I could help. I thought I could fix everything." Eric swallowed, forcing himself to use his logical mind. "Sweetheart, I need you to calm down and tell me exactly where you are, okay? Deep breath. Talk to me." "I'm at the Daly's house. I came to tell Marissa that Mickey was alive. I knew how much she was suffering, like when Ricky was missing. I thought while I was here I would snoop in Mr. Daly's office and maybe find some stuff for Jason. But he caught me, and I fought him, Daddy, and I almost won, but he grabbed my hair, and he pulled me down, and he locked me in a room, and he told me I was dead, and he hurt Marissa, and he made Mrs. Daly take her away, and I'm not sure where she is." "Okay. I'm on my way. You hear me? I'm on my way. When we hang up, you hide your phone, You turn it off so he won't hear it if someone tries to call you. Don't put it in your pocket. Put it in your sock or your bra. Got it?" She sniffed. "I got it. Jeffy will be there." "I believe you." "I'm sorry, Dad." "Tell Mom I'm sorry." "We'll talk about that later. Hang up and do what I said." "Okay, bye." Eric held his hand up as everyone tried to talk at once. "Just listen," he said. He dialed Jason and started talking the moment he picked up. "Tell me you have a read on Jeffy's GPS phone tracker." Eric waited impatiently for Jason's answer, and Jason came back to the phone. "I've got her. It's in Seattle." "That's because she's in Seattle." "Get in touch with the FBI up there, Jason. Daly has my daughter." The family listened as Eric told Jason everything Jeffy had said. Mickey stumbled backward, plastered herself against the dining room wall. "It's all my fault," she said softly. Jeff placed his hands on her shoulders. "No, it's not. You're not responsible for anyone's actions but your own. Do you hear me?" Mickey glanced over at Shelley's pale face, her eyes glued on her husband as he spoke, and pulling away, she ran up the stairs. And that is the end of chapter 8.